Good morning. My name is Michelle Dotz, and while some of you may know who I am, I'm sure a lot of you do not. For those of you who do, sorry, you're going to have to sit through my explanation of why I'm here today. As I said, my name is Michelle Dotz, and I am a former member of Church of the Cross in Toledo, Ohio. I accepted Christ at their altar nearly 7 years ago. But as we all know, the seeds were planted well before that day, long before I knew that someone for 20 years had been praying for me and interceding on my behalf. And this is that story. I'm not a person who was raised in the church, and I am what is commonly referred to as a first-generation Christian in my home. However, when I was a child, my mother would often send me and my sister to a church down the street from our home, which also happened to be a United Methodist church. She wasn't one to go to church herself, but she would send us there when they had events such as VBS or a summer program they called the Pink Panthers, which was basically a group that took field trips, ate lunch, and various sorts of free time activities. In my opinion, it was free babysitting for my mom. I would eventually begin attending this church on Sundays too, because I liked the people there, and the donuts weren't that bad either. I attended this church from the time I was 8 or so until I was about 13 or 14. I remember the pastor of the church being a woman by the name of Mary Jo Yankel. Mary Jo was always very kind to me, and I remember oftentimes sitting in her office and talking to her about the events in my home. To say that I had a not-so-great childhood would be an understatement. Without going into details, know that I was a troubled child who watched her father beat her mother on several different occasions, as well as becoming a target of his abuse also. And while I never revealed those specifics to Mary Jo, she was well in tune to the idea that something was definitely not right in my home. When I was 13 years old, my mother left my father and filed for divorce. I distinctly remember going to Mary Jo's office at the United Methodist Church in Dayton and crying to her about the situation. My sister would actually soon join me in that office, and after tears were shed for what seemed like hours, Mary Jo prayed with us. To say I understood what was going on would be a lie, but there was comfort in knowing that someone cared for us when it seemed like we were suddenly of no concern to anyone. Almost immediately after my parents' divorce, I began to rebel against everything and everyone. I stopped attending church regularly and would just drop in every now and then to see what was happening. In this time, Mary Jo had left the church because she had been appointed, and I lost all contact with her. I began drinking and smoking at the age of 14, became very promiscuous, and didn't care much about anything. This period of rebellion lasted well into my adult life, until the age of 26, when I knelt at that altar and let God have complete control of my life. After becoming a Christian, I often thought of Mary Jo and wondered what happened to her. I had talked about her on several occasions when people would ask if I was raised in the church. But I can honestly say I never really put forth any effort to find her and tell her thank you for what she had done for me so long ago. As some of you may know, in January of 2008, I met a man who is now my husband, Kevin Dotz. Kevin is a United Methodist pastor, and we currently serve a congregation in South Point, Ohio, 5 hours away from Toledo. Each year in June, we are required to attend a week-long conference held at Lakeside, and it is a conference comprised of all churches in the West Ohio Conference. I don't do a lot of the conferencing, but I do try to attend worship daily if I can, and this past summer was one of the best worship and preaching I had heard in a long time, other than my husband, of course. On one of those days, there was a guest speaker who was talking about how we should make a list of 10 people who we want to see saved, and pray for that list of people every single day until you hear that they have accepted Christ. I thought this was a profound statement, and we have often talked about this list of 10 at our church since returning from conference. By the way, make a list. On the last day of conference during the worship service, they do something called the fixing of appointments, which is basically the conference announcing to the pastors who have been reappointed for the following year. To my amazement, I heard a name that I was quite familiar with, Mary Jo Yankel. I quickly turned to my husband and said, "I know her! She is from the church that Mom used to send us to. I have to go and find her." So after the service was over, I sought her out, almost like a stalker. When I found her, she was talking to someone, but I was so excited to see her that I kind of snuck around him and I said, "Can I speak to you for just a minute?" She said, "Sure," and the gentleman she was talking to actually walked away. I asked her if I looked familiar to her, and she said a little, but there wasn't a real immediate response. I said, Well, my name is Michelle Dotts, but you would know me as Michelle Howe. Before I could get anything else out of my mouth, she stepped back with her hands on her chest as if she was about to pass out from shock. Immediately, I saw the tears well up in her eyes as she said, "Oh, my goodness, Michelle. I have been praying for you for 20 years. The last time I saw you, I knew that you had two options. You could choose the right things in life or the wrong things, and I feared that you would choose the wrong things. I have thought about you and prayed for you for 20 years. By the way, I'm 33 years old now, and my parents divorced at 13, so 20 years was no exaggeration." She then wanted to know what I was doing at annual conference of all places. I explained to her that I had accepted Christ at the age of 26, that my life had completely changed from anything she may have heard about me, and I was now married to a United Methodist pastor. I proceeded to thank her for her prayers and for her guidance to me and my sister during those formidable years of our youth, and what it meant to me to know that she was praying for me all this time, and what a blessing it was to see her that day and to be able to tell her. I thought that would be the end of our conversation. We would exchange emails, go our separate ways, and that would be that. But here's the kicker. She returned to me by saying that I had been a blessing to her. I firmly believe that I was on her list of 10, and she had now seen her prayers come to fruition. By witnessing my faith, she had tangible proof of the works of her labor. I think the glow upon her face was as great as the one upon my own, and this was truly a divine reunion. I tell you all of this so that you are able to realize one simple truth. The planting of seeds in the heart of a child does not go unnoticed. Whether they get it 20 minutes after you plant it or 20 years, it does not sprout in vain. All of these seeds that you are planting today, tomorrow, and in all of your future endeavors are sowed firmly within the root of Jesus Christ, and it is to Him that all glory will one day be given. Plant a seed today, water it tomorrow, and watch it grow in the years to come. And who knows, maybe one of these days, at some Connect or annual conference you attend, you too will have a divine reunion of equal blessing. Thank you.